Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another lesson. Today we're going to be with the Cambridge Checkpoint book, and we're going to continue Unit 10 that we started studying since yesterday. Prepare your books and let's begin. For the objectives, we will start by knowing how to choose the best synonym. Then we will know what's the meaning of ballads. After that, we will know how to start and finish our stories in a mysterious way. During all that, we're going to have many exercises from the course book that we're going to solve together. Before we start doing anything, I would like you to read the ballad on page 127, 28, and 29. It's a very long poem. We're going to read it, and after that, we will be able to solve some exercises after it. While you read it, try to find some hard words that you don't know their meanings. After you do it, we will come back together. So stop the video and start reading it. Okay, if you finished, now we will solve the exercises, starting with 5a. The question for 5a is, which are the words which made the greatest impression on you when you read or heard text 10b? Can you explain why? So they want us to know the words that made impression, the words that were effective for us. So we can answer this by saying words which make an impression on first reading tend to be those which are unusual, uh, which means they are sophisticated or we don't use them in the daily life. Then we have exotic sounding, evocative of fear, or related to the senses. Remember that we said whenever you want to create impression, to write in the best way possible, to use imagery, to use images, those that appeal to your five senses, words like you can hear, words you can see or imagine. So imagery, using imagery is very important here. So these are therefore the kinds of words to be used in students' own creative writing. That was for A. Now for B. Find the word in text 10b which have the following meanings. We have the first one, which is uh, live. The meaning or the word in the text is dwell. Then for number 2, we have trouble, a verb. We have ale. Waves is swell. Then you have a jar. And the last one, which is a sense of misfortune, then it's foreboding. Before we can solve exercise 5c, we have to learn how to use synonyms, how to choose the best synonym possible. So here we have some tips of using better synonyms. Starting with the first one, the synonym needs to be the same part of speech. If you're having an adjective, bring a synonym which is adjective as well. If you're using the sentence without changing, but if you change it a little bit and you have, for example, an adverb in your mind that gives the same meaning with other changes in the sentence, it could be possible. Number 2, it is important to look at the surrounding words, which is context, to be sure of choosing the same meaning. Because some words give more than one meaning. So the context is very important to notice if you're having the same meaning or not. So always avoid choosing the first word that comes to your mind or the first word that you have in your dictionary. The third one, put in your mind the obvious meaning and the figurative meaning. Sometimes people write things that are figurative. So you wouldn't come and bring synonyms that are just the same word, because he doesn't mean it in this way. Maybe he means it only in the figurative way. So you have to understand it, and only bring words that are convenient for the word that you want to replace. Number 4, avoid cliche. We talked about cliche, and we talked about how when something is used a lot, it becomes cliche, unwanted. So try to avoid them. For the 5th one, avoid weak words that have no effect. Always try to find better words, more sophisticated words. That will give better impression for the reader. And finally, try to use, it's really connected to the one before it, try to use more sophisticated words, which means longer words rather than using the ordinary words like nice and bad. Try to use more sophisticated ones. So for exercise 5C, we will use a dictionary to find the meanings of these words and bring the best synonym that we could find, following all the tips that we gave you. So here are the answers for these words. For example, for glimmer, we wrote gleam and glow. For gallant, we have valiant and stately. For ghastly, you can bring frightful, grim, horrifying, terrible. All these adjectives could be used. Then you have dread, fearful. Then you have made fast, secured or tied up. Remember, we're bringing the synonym according to the text that we have. So the context is important in this case. For this one, we have entrance and doorway. Then we could bring throw, push, or push it open, sorry. And after that, for alarm, we can bring panic or scare. Then you have feeble is faint or simply weak. Finally, starved, died slowly from lack of food. Here we will find out what's the meaning of ballads. A ballad is a type of poetry. So let's read the definition. A ballad is a long narrative poem in the oral tradition and therefore often containing a refrain or repetition of vocabulary. So you will find out that there are many repeated lines and repeated vocabulary in this kind of poems, ballads. Another characteristic could be contractions. We use a lot of contractions here. In what occasions? Let's see. One of the occasions of using these contractions, using apostrophe instead of some letters, is, for example, using it instead of E, the letter E, like the word that you have here, steered. So steered, you have the apostrophe instead of the E. In other occasions also, they use the apostrophe instead of some letters just to make the word of one syllable. So like the word here, over, or other words mentioned, you can find them in your poem, in your ballad. Another characteristic is the using of and but. We use and but in this type a lot as connectives, of course. We don't use more sophisticated things because these ballads, they depend on their simplicity. They are just simple. Okay, so uh, they just rely on the chain of events. Finally, we have alliteration and assonance, and we use alliteration and assonance to make anything, to make poems easy to be memorized, easy to be told. So using alliteration and assonance is something that could be found a lot in this type of poetry ballads. Now for exercise 6b on page 130, the question is about the suspense. How suspense was created by what? So discuss how the poem has built up suspense so far. Look at the description and the order of the actions. So we will try to answer this question by saying first, the description relies on words beginning with G. This letter G is associated with unpleasant sounding and frightening words like what? Gloom, ghastly, gaped. All these words give a frightening meaning. So it prepares the reader for the scary event and the presence of the three large seabirds. The action is stretched out by the repetition of verbs. So when all these repetitions are used, you feel that something scary will come, such as the four uses of climb in stanza 6. It is winter and the sunlight is cold, which creates a chilly atmosphere suitable for a horror story, especially because of the contrast of the lively sea and the silent isle. All this creates this scary atmosphere. The men have traveled through a dark night, moving ever closer to the heart of the mystery, to the island, then the lighthouse, then the room with the abandoned meal and overturned furniture, which can only mean something unexpected and disastrous has occurred. The birds are used as a symbol or bad omen. With the same exercise, but now with C. The question is, discuss how the reader has been made to feel sorry for the narrator of the poem. Pick out particular words which evoke the reader's sympathy. So you need to find how did they or how did the writer made the reader sorry for the characters there. What words can you see that would lead you to feel sorry for the characters? So we can answer this question by saying the narrator and his companions are dreading what they will find from the very beginning and wish they were anywhere else other than where they are now. So particular words which evoke empathy are those which reminds us of danger and fear, like words dread, foreboding, strange scent of death, and the references to the color black. The man's search is likely to be hopeless, and so we pity the searchers. We feel sorry for them because they are hopeless. This is how, when you write, you even control the feelings of your readers. For exercise 7a, I'll let you solve it individually since you are required to find the references for light only. While for exercise 7b, we have some important things here. We have to deal with the three types of birds mentioned in this ballad. So you would notice that some of them or all of these three types are different from each other. So starting with the first one, the first reference for a bird is the positive image of a gull in the flight. That's in stanza 3. It's a good one. The reference here is good. In contrast to the other one, which is the three large sinister birds, the evil birds, those that were awaiting for the man's arrival, which then soundlessly disappeared. And the final reference for a bird was the symbolic dying caged bird found in the lighthouse. Okay, so the first one was a good reference for birds, the second one was for these evil birds, and finally for the caged bird, the one put in a cage. Now to solve 7C. The question is, discuss whether the searchers will find the three men. What do you think happened to them? What is the evidence from text 10b which gives you this impression? You remember when we studied inference, we have to find the clues to predict what will happen next or what's the ending of the story. So we can answer this question by saying the poem uses various devices to direct the reader to believe that the missing lighthouse keepers will not be found. So the ending will be sad. So the implication is that they have been turned into unnatural birds. And furthermore, that the searchers are in danger themselves. The evidence is the sinister atmosphere, the fearful mood of the searchers, the three strange birds, which are not of any recognizable breed, but are compared to seamen, the imagery of death and silence and darkness, the admission by the narrator that it is hopeless search. All these things give us the thought that, of course, the searchers will not find the three men, while the searchers themselves will be in danger. Here we would learn how to build mysterious beginnings and endings. As you have noticed so far reading all these texts, that they start with a conversation. And the conversation here is not ordinary. It's full of puzzling things, of something that is really contains suspense. So here you have to make your beginning intriguing, puzzling, or shocking. You have to shock your readers to make the readers interested and engaged. That will lead them or will lead you to put a mystery to be solved throughout the story. And finally, to put a good ending, a very good way is to put an open ending. Do not give the end for the readers. Let them build a conclusion. They will make the conclusion about how the end will be. This will be more interesting for them. And at the same time, you have to leave clues so that you will direct them to a certain conclusion if you want the ending to be, for example, happy or sad in a certain way. So you have to put these clues. After reading the text on page 131, which is the listeners, you are required to answer the questions for exercise 8. So stop the video right now and try to read the text. If you already did, let's answer these questions. First, explain in one sentence of your own words what happens in the poem. So you have to summarize whatever happened in this poem in only one sentence. This is very easy for you since we learned summarizing. An answer could be given in this way. An unknown person arrives on the horseback at night at an apparently empty house in the woods because he has promised that he will. But after receiving no response, he leaves. That's the brief summary for this poem, or sorry, for this text. And after that, we will answer B, which is how has the beginning of the poem been made intriguing or mysterious? So, how was it made mysterious? Of course, the poem starts in the middle of an action, and we said it so many times. When you start it with a conversation, you feel that there is something intriguing. You want to know more what's happening. So, of an action and with direct speech, with no explanation about the situation, so the reader is immediately intrigued and wants to know who is the traveler and why he is there. The setting is at night with moonlight and the middle of the forest. The character is alone and outnumbered. These are typical features of mystery and horror stories. By the way, when we give when we give these advices about how to make it mysterious, starting it with a conversation or starting it with the description of people, you have to know that each type of writing a story contains a different way to do it. So if you're writing something which is not mysterious, you don't have to stick to these rules of starting it with a conversation or something intriguing. It only depends on the type. The last part for this lesson is to answer exercise 9, which is multiple choice question about the text 10D on page 132. So if you have to read the text very quickly and choose the right answers, after you do, here are the right answers. A would be number 3, B number 2, and C would be number 4. This is all what we have for today's lesson. Please try to solve exercise 5 and exercise 8 for this unit. They will be very beneficial for you. See you next time.